Welcome to A Well-Designed Business with your host, LuAnn. LuAnn has a lifetime of experience building a multi-million-dollar business with her husband and cousin, and she knows the challenges you face in your interior design business. LuAnn brings you real-life answers to your most pressing problems, as well as practical strategies to explode your interior design business. So, let's get to the business of interior design.
Hi, this is LuAnn. I understand on Power Talk Friday I don't typically have an introduction, and I also don't typically have available to you the things I learned from PDF document. But this particular interview, I think you will find, is very jam-packed. And Kathy, who you're going to meet, has really a ton of information. And when the interview was over, she mentioned to me that she does have a prepared list of questions that are very, very helpful in helping you make the right hire. So we do discuss in the interview coming up several of these questions, but this is much more in-depth. So I wanted to just stop in here before the interview starts and let you know that if you are about to hire or you struggle with how to hire, then definitely this interview I'm sure you will enjoy. And also please be sure to go over to www.windowworks-nj.com/Kathy K. So that's Kathy with a K and the letter K following it. www.windowworks-nj.com, Kathy with a K, and you will click on the things I learned from Kathy Knowles. All right, so this is her document that I've included in here. This is not my document, but I'm going to tell you what, it's jam-packed and it's very valuable. So I hope you enjoy the interview and have an excellent day. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Power Talk Friday on A Well-Designed Business. Today on the show, I have Kathy Knowles with me. Hi Kathy, how are you?
Hey, LuAnn, I'm great. I'm really excited to be here.
Yes, I'm thankful that you joined us today. I want to tell everybody a little bit about you before we get knee-deep into this conversation, which I'm chomping at the bit to have. So, Kathy Knowles' company is called Intuitive Strategies and Consultants, and Kathy is known as the Soulful Business Mentor. So, like you all know me by now, and you know me, you have me at hello right there, right? So, Kathy is a former top-level HR director who has turned entrepreneur, and she understands the challenges of leaving behind a successful yet uninspiring six-figure career in order to build a more satisfying business and life for yourself. So I think that's going to talk to a little bit of our listeners today, Kathy. But in addition to this, you and your team, you share proven strategies and formulas to help us establish a growth strategy that makes us more money and frees us more time. I mean, magic words, right? So insights from her 20 years experience of maximizing people and potential as an HR director gives her a true advantage in helping us create our own heart and soul driven business. Kathy's mission is to help more business owners and entrepreneurs create a life of business that they love without sacrificing integrity, income, or sanity, right? So that's a tall bill to fill. I'm just going to tell you, lady, because I'm like, sign me up for all of it.
I hear you. I know.
So I'm going to just share with everyone listening that there are many things that Kathy and I could have discussed. Kathy is a talented business coach, and she comes highly recommended to me and to this podcast. And I'll just share with you that there were many topics that we could have discussed. We could have discussed the Soulful Business Blueprint. We could have discussed intuitive business strategies. We could have discussed how to create a customer referral program in 3 easy steps. We could have discussed her 7-step system for creating more purpose, profits, and possibilities. And there was like 3 blog posts on her website that I wanted to discuss. So you can see that she's talented and has a broad range, and there's a lot of resources on her website for you to access. But we zeroed in on help business owners hire right the first time. So I'll tell you why, Kathy, that I opted for this topic between the two of us, because first of all, it's very, very, very helpful to discuss this for people, designers who for the first time are contemplating their first hire. But I have to tell you, I'm in business more than 30 years, and I'm looking forward to this discussion as well, because hiring is one of the most, I'm going to just use it, the word troublesome parts of being in business. I mean, it truly is. I think I would almost rather be single again and try and figure out a new husband than a new employee.
I get it.
I mean, not that I'm giving mine up, so. But I mean, it's just such a different dance. It's like there's so much that goes on, all the moving parts of where to find them and then how to really get to know them in an interview well enough to make a great decision. And then how about all the homework that we have to do as business owners before we even go to look for that person to know what we're looking for and how to define what they'll do, right, Kath?
Right. It's really true. There's so
I'm
many
exhausted thinking about it.
And the thing is, it's the truth. There's an art to it. There's that intuition piece that we talked about, and there's a real strategy. And when you put all those things in place, it's remarkable because you find that right person, right?
Yes.
But when you're missing those pieces, oh, it's overwhelming.
So what do we start with? I know. I'm honestly, I actually think that I've achieved a certain level of competence with it. I would never go so far as to say expertise with it, but competence with it. But it is because I mostly drive it from an intuition standpoint. I mean, I know that I'm just going to say that flat out, but the thing is that it would be really swell to have more than my intuition to go by and an actual strategy. And of course, for everyone that has never had to do this yet and is facing it, one of the designers on Facebook, in our Facebook group recently, just said to all of us, made my first hire today, and she shouts out to me, and she's like, all because of you, LuAnn, Garrett. I'm like, well, good luck, gal. You know what I mean?
Great.
It is. It's fun and it's exciting. But so break it down for us, Kathy. Where do we start? I'm imagining I know for me, I always start with my own homework. Tell us where you suggest, as an expert in this, where we start.
Right. Well, I think where we really start is always within us, right? It's like no matter what we're working on, no matter what we're doing, it always starts with us first. And what it comes down to is really getting crystal clear on where it is that you want to go with your business in the first year or, in the upcoming year or 3 years, getting really clear on that. And then from there, being able to reverse engineer to take an inventory of where you are today. And then, of course, create where you want to go. And that comes with knowing the position and knowing the job description. It's really interesting, LuAnn, how people, when they get overwhelmed and overworked, always the first thing that they say is, oh, I need an assistant. And that's not necessarily the truth. And the more clear that you could get about what the role and responsibility will be for this person, the more you will know exactly what it is that you need to hire for the growth of your company in the future, as well as being really clear on what their skill set is that you're looking for.
Okay. Now I'm going to share something with you that seems to be in the direction of where you might be headed. We had a show on recently about a month or so ago in real time, obviously, with Rania Barrett, who is the business development director at House of Funk. And I had an aha moment on that show. And what it was, again, of course, I'm talking about my business is a mature business. I already have 8 employees, but I'm overwhelmed. I mean, I'm hands up. There I am, trying to find the tide water there. And my aha moment was what you just touched on, that it isn't maybe that I need an admin, but maybe like she was talking about how video marketing is a big thing now, and social media and different. It was a whole long discussion, but the point was it hit me and I was like, oh, well, if what I really need to do is branch out and get this whole video thing going, maybe I don't need an admin. I need somebody to help me do video. like other than hiring a full-on video producer, which of course is not in the pocketbook now, but she advocated, the use of interns. And so that what you just said there, it isn't always necessarily an assistant. So what you're saying is get clear on where you want to go, what you want your business to look like in 1 year and in 3 years, whether you're in business, right now or like me, 30 years. Get clear on what you want it to be a year and 3 years from now. And then what? You figure out the things that you want to have happen that you don't have the skill set for, or that you don't like to do. What do we do once we know what our goal is?
Absolutely. Where we go with that is, there's things as entrepreneurs, as business owners, that we're just natural at. And it's typically the thing that we stepped into business for. So the beautiful thing for all of your clients, for everyone watching this podcast, is it's all about design and being a well-designed business, right?
Right.
So that's what they're good at. That's where their magic is. That's where their intuition naturally shows up. And so it's hiring around the things that you're not good at. So let's say you're looking at your business and you really do want to expand your base. And number one, social media is really important. You want to expand the base, whether it be on Facebook, whether it be on LinkedIn, whether it be videos, whether it be YouTube, whatever it is. So now looking at that, what do you really want the numbers to be? Do you want to add to your list? Do you want to gain more clients? You want to add to your list and gain more clients? Well, then how do you want to add to your list? What will that look like? So it's now reverse engineering to say, all right, if I'm looking for an intern and they're in college, what would they need to be studying that would work for me? And it's reaching out now to those people that have that marketing background. And there's so many different divisions of marketing, right?
Right.
But the marketing background that's truly dealing with the video side, the social media side, all of those kind of things. And then working with them in a crystal clear way to be able to say, at the end of this year, I want to know that I've added 4,000 people to my email list that are truly potential for being my client, my real client, right? And I want to know that through this, I've gained this many customers, and this is the way I want to go about doing that.
Okay. So there's like two things in there that I
Sure.
Do you think it's truly, now, okay, let me just clarify. We are probably talking to interior designers who are self-employed that might have 0 to maybe 3 to 4 employees at present. So for the most part, small businesses, right? Do you think it's truly possible for a small business to grow their email list by 4,000 people in 1 year?
I do. Whoa. Yes.
I think we might have to change the topic of the show.
Well, here's the thing.
Because if we could do that for all of our listeners, well, then we just hit a slam dunk.
Here's the thing. If you really are, again, focused, and if that is your whole intention, and, I'm going to kind of go off on the woo-woo side a little bit here, LuAnn, and I know there, so we're good.
That's it.
One of the things I do every day is I wake up every morning and I ask my business, what do you want to do today? So I am a huge planner. Like when I complete the end of the day, I write things down. I know what I really want to move into the next day that are most important for me to accomplish. But sometimes the next day when it does come around, those things aren't feeling right. It almost feels as if I have to have a conversation with my business. So when I do this and when I go to that sort of intuitive place for me deep inside, my business then has a tendency to tell me, well, you need to be reaching out to these clients that you've already worked with that are your true brand advocates. You need to be asking those clients, who do you know that would appreciate and love the services that I've done with you? Really, really getting crystal clear on that as well, what you can offer. The business may tell me that I need to go visit potential clients. The business may tell me that I may need to stand up in the world and do a few speaking gigs in the course of a month's time. The business may tell me I need to go on a podcast interview, right? Mm-hmm. So it really is all those things, and all those ways are jewels that you continue to build your list. And then you put the social media aspect on top of that, and you become really strong at the social media side, finding someone good who can really blog strong on LinkedIn, and knowing that those blogs are now center of attention and they're constantly being rolled out and they're being broken down and used over and over again. It's very interesting how quickly you can grow your lists.
Wow.
and grow your reputation as an expert in the industry.
Okay, so that's it's a little overwhelmed now. I truly have to say. Okay, so well, because there's so much in there. It's like I said in the the introduction. There's so much that we could talk about here. So, all right, I'm going to try and not be all ADD on my audience here, and maybe round it back. So, okay, as intriguing as all that is about the growing the list, I do hear what you're saying. What you're saying in there is that if your goal is to grow your list, whether it's to grow your list from 0 to 200 or from 200 to 2,000, is that there are components that go into that. And it includes outreach to your present client base. It includes putting more content out there about what you do as an interior designer, whether that's content on Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn, it's blog posts, it's pictures, it's mood boards, it's anything that entices your client to you. And then finally, when you have created a schedule of all of this content that brings you, and like you said, it could even include speaking engagements. Designers have opportunities for that as well. What you're saying is once you've really established your plan, your multi-prong attack of putting your content out into the world, then it's capitalizing on it with an effective marketing strategy that includes all of the components of social media, etc. And then this will, with a very strategic, directed, thoughtful process, this will result in growing our list.
Yes.
Okay.
As well as result in knowing what type of team member to bring on board.
Okay, right, exactly. Okay, so now let's go back to the team member, because you did, you really, piqued me with all of that, but I had to say, okay, that's what I learned from that conversation, but we're going back to how to hire somebody.
No problem.
Okay, so we go back to the hire. So now I don't want us to just solely focus on if it's a hire, like I mentioned, for video or whatever, because it might be an admin, but how?
Absolutely.
Okay, so what the idea is, the situation is that we establish what our goal is. So in that scenario, if our goal was to grow the email list, as you said, then it might be that the person is a writer or a social media expert. It might be that, whether it's an intern or it's a full-blown adult that we're hiring for a job. Okay. So that's very important. But then the designer sits and says, okay, I've got my design locked down. I know my process for design. I know how to meet and greet clients. I know how to execute my projects, but my goal for this next year is to grow my email list, or my goal for this next year is to have a full pipeline in the following year. And in order to do that, I need to do marketing. So that's one scenario that a designer might say. What are some of the other things in your experience that your clients come to you with? Just throw out some ideas of other goals, just so that we include more people in this conversation. They think, oh yeah, that's my goal, not that one. What kinds of things happen,
Absolutely.
Kath? Okay.
Absolutely. Well, getting back to the administrator, right?
Right.
Certainly many people, when they are overwhelmed, it is having that administrator by their side, that person that can make the phone calls for them, that person that can ensure that the orders are done properly, the person that is there by your side when you're going to an event, or if you yourself are having an event. So when it comes to administration, knowing that you have the right person to handle your bookkeeping. It's interesting to me how, people kind of say, oh, well, yeah, I can do that. It's easy enough. Well, if it's not your gig, you shouldn't be doing it. You should be out in the world doing what you do best. So ensuring that your numbers, that the bookkeeping, that you're really clear on all of those things, really important to make sure that you have the right person in that position. To know as well that when it comes down to communicating with your clients, if there's anyone there that you are working with as far as, again, going back to that writer side or the newsletter side, how are you keeping your clients interested today? How are you ensuring that you have a real, true CRM, whether it be an administrator or someone that is capable of ensuring that customer contact kind of person to ensure that they're being touched and nurtured the way they need to be? all of these are actually very different roles, but they're all very important roles within an organization.
Mm-hmm. And we've had guests on the show discuss that one of the mechanisms that you can do in order to establish who your first hire is and many people say it across industries, is the 4 lists, the list of the things I love to do, the things I'm terrific at doing, the things I hate doing, the things I'm really not any good at doing. And they, we've had many people echo that this is a great starting point as an exercise, that when you do it, you learn what you're really good at and what you love to do. And then you take a look at those other 2 lists and you're like, that's who I need to hire, somebody who's really good at this and who likes to do these things. Do you ascribe to that way of thinking, Kathy, or do you have a different thoughts on it, or what do you think?
No, I love that, LuAnn.
Oh, you do? Okay, good.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
That is exactly the way I tell my clients to start off, because it's so interesting, right? When we hire and we're really not familiar, or we really turn it more into a conversation rather than truly a hiring practice where we're asking strong and powerful interview questions. We love to hire people that are similar to us.
I know, right? It's tough in the beginning to resist that pull. It takes a while. I mean, I've got it now down pat, but it does. I recall in the beginning, you want to surround yourself with people who, fire you up, and you forget, oh, wait, that's another one of me. We like to do the same things. Now we still have those crappy jobs over there that nobody wants to do.
That's correct. Only now the team is bigger and no one wants to do those jobs. So it's kind of like, but yes, that's it. That's one of the reasons why I really love the breakdown of having the list of 4, because now you're crystal clear. For instance, I can be really good on details when it comes to working with my clients, but for myself in some terms, because I love to be out in the world and I love to be talking to people and I love that strategy side. So when it comes to my work or my business, I'd really appreciate other people handling the details for me. Because again, I want to be out there doing strategies for my clients. So it can be a little tricky too, because you can look at your list and you could say, oh, well, I'm super detail oriented and I love doing that. Well, absolutely. You may love doing that with interior design, right?
Right.
But you may not love doing that with the numbers,
exactly,
with bookkeeping side. So it is doing the list of 4, but then breaking it down a little bit further and saying, especially on the detail side, because we all know everything's in the details.
Right.
Yeah. So
well, and I think that speaks to what you're good at and what you like and what you don't like. So, for instance, it's funny that you describe yourself that way, because I would say that I'm very similar. What I have to do with window treatments is very detailed. There's no giving that off. There's no pretending. It's just like sit down and pay attention and do it. But when you mention going out to different events and even just going to the appointment, Kimberly locks down all those details for me. It's like, okay, you have your this, you have your that. I've got you this. Yeah. And I just show up and I stand there. It's like, yes, awesome. She's got me. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So it is true. And it's like, when you make that list, it's what you just said in there is maybe you are a detailed person, but like you just said, your joy in that detail is with the design, but the joy in the detail is not in the bookkeeping. So it's not just what you're good at, it's what do you like to do. So you might like to be detailed oriented in your design, but you don't like to be detail orientated in your scheduling or in your bookkeeping or whatever. So it's like you said, it's not just your talent, it's what you like and don't like too, right?
Yes, absolutely. And being really probably more mindful of what you like and don't like, even more so than your talent, because your talent is just going to shine through.
Exactly.
And I think sometimes we have a tendency when it comes to what we like and what we don't like to say to ourselves, oh yeah, but right now I really can't afford it. Right. Or right now, I'm not really in the place where I'm ready to branch out in that. Well, the truth is, if you were to branch out in that one little area of, let's say, again, bookkeeping, it only gives you your light and your brightness to shine through in what you love doing and you're naturally good at to go out in the world and do it.
Exactly.
So, Yeah.
No, I like it. There's a number. I can't think of the conversation that we just had in our showroom recently in the last week. And I just looked at whoever it was and I was like, 2 hours doing that or 2 hours doing FaceTime with a new client. Like, what are we talking about here? This is a ridiculous conversation. Why we're not, no, I'm going out there and somebody else is doing this.
Yeah, right.
You know, it's just, it's sometimes it's, you know, usually my feeling on it is that if you are an entrepreneur and you are in business for yourself and you run your own company, you are probably the Rainmaker too, you know, because you're the one who has the passion for it. You're the one who has the expertise for it, but you have to be out there rainmaking. You know, when your pipeline's not full, you know, you're not going to fill it by, you know, crossing your T's and dotting your I's on the ledger page, you know? So, it's tough though. Look, I'm acting like it's easy peasy. It's not easy peasy, especially that first and that second hire. And that's really the whole point of the conversation here, to try and alleviate some of that anxiety. And so let's just say each of the person listening that is needing and feeling like that they're in that space. And by the way, I have a way of describing when I feel like you can really be pretty sure that you are ready for a first hire. In my world, is if like I just described, I'm a rainmaker in my business. I'm great face to face. This is my role. This is what I do well. But when I start to feel like, and I always usually tell people, if you have an appointment today for a client presentation, a new possibility for a new client, and maybe it's at 2:00 in the afternoon and you're with your head down at your desk and you're working, and around 12:30 you look up and you think, oh my goodness, I wish I could cancel that appointment because I have to finish my paperwork. Like, to me, that's like the first sign that we need to hire somebody, right? It's like when you're daydreaming about turning away what you do best, which is bring business to your firm so that you can do paperwork. That's the first like sign. Do you agree? I mean, I didn't learn this from anybody. I just feel like it instinctively. Do you agree with that, or would you clarify that or add to that? What would you say, Kath?
I completely agree with that.
Okay.
You know, what I find when clients call me, when business owners and entrepreneurs call me, is one of the first things they'll say is, I'm so tired of putting out fires and I feel like I'm an employee in my own business. Mm-hmm. So, you know, they're working in the business and not on the business. And we are entrepreneurs because we're visionaries, because we have this really deep why and this passion somewhere inside of us. And it's something we can't explain. When that spark starts to go away, we have a problem. Right. And typically that problem is not having a team. You know, there's a saying out there, if you want to build your dream, you have to have a team. And I don't care if that team consists of people that are 1099, if that team consists of interns, if that team consists of what you would consider to be true employees. We have to have people surrounding us so we can be out in the world doing our greatness. Right.
I agree. I love it. Okay, so let's go to the next step. Let's say that we've established our 1 and our 3 year goals for our company, no matter how new or seasoned it is. We have done our 4-part list. We have a pretty good idea of what we're looking for in that first position. We either want to hire an admin, we want to hire whatever it's going to be. It's a design assistant, whatever it is. What's next, Kath? How do you suggest people, because obviously we have to find them. I don't know that we can go through that whole craziness right now, but and you'll tell me, right? Okay, so let's assume that we have a viable candidate has come to our attention. The interview process, is that part of what you help people on? I mean, I didn't ask you this ahead of time, but because to me, you know, it's the asking great questions to get the answers that mean something.
Yes. I actually, when I work with people, I have something called a find and fill formula. And when I work with businesses and business owners, I teach them how to do this whole formula. And it's everything from, looking at your long range goals and getting really clear on the job description, and then teaching them how to go out and find people, because it's not about putting something on Monster or Career Builder or Indeed. It's going out to find people in a really proactive way. We go to where they hang out because that's where we find our best people. But some of the most, along with the job description, the second most important thing in this whole thing is the interview questions. And so often what happens is people turn the interview, as I said earlier, into a conversation. And it's not a conversation. It's an interview. It's about asking these powerful questions, not only about the person's skill set, so you know and understand if they've done it before, but also about their own attitude and aptitude, and will they fit in with your values, with the team, with that whole overall feeling. Because every company, every business has its own vibe, right? Its own vibrational frequency. And it's really important that the person coming on board matches that.
Yes.
So there's a series of questions that, really peel back the onion. And the way I ask a question is, let's say I ask someone something like, so tell me about the strategy in regard to the social media. How do you, in fact, go out and start to expand a business in social media? So that person will, say to me, well, this is what I do on Mondays, and this is what I do on Tuesdays, and this is what I do on Wednesdays. And so then my question would be, well, explain to me a little bit further, when you had a challenge in this issue, explain to me a little bit further of how you overcame that. Mm-hmm. Or when you had a negative comment in regard to one of your Facebook ads, what did that look like and what did you say? Okay. So it really is digging very deep in real case scenarios. You want to know, when was the last time they physically had this challenge, this win, this issue, this problem, whatever it may be.
Okay. And so are you suggesting then, if we were, for instance, interviewing for the admin position, yes, in addition to their experience and so forth, where they've come from other positions, would you then be asking questions like, what is your response if a client calls up on the telephone and is upset that there's, a painter there and he dropped a can of paint and they're crazy pants screaming and they want the designer on the phone? Like, so what you're saying is get specific. Think of the crazy things that happen in your business. Ask the person, what would they do if this happened to them, and how would they handle it?
Yes. And in those questions, we're really looking for someone that has that entrepreneurial spirit themselves, right? Because we're all entrepreneurs. That's the way we think. And we want people that will think the same way. So hopefully that person will answer back, well, I would give them these 2 or 3 options, mm-hmm, right? And to know that they have free reign to do that. That's when you start to really, when you ask those type of questions, when they get really specific, tell me about a time when, or when were you in a situation where you had to communicate something negative? Okay. Those type of questions, when you can answer those specific questions and they start to respond back to you, you can tell, number 1, by how detailed they answer the question. Number 2, how quickly they answered that question. And number 3, how open they were to you in answering the question, if that makes sense, mm-hmm, how they're going to be with your own clients.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then what happens if, that scenario where you ask somebody a question like this, that's a hard-hitting, sort of digging deep question, and they stumble over it. So because to me, I read my intuition on it. I go, okay, so they were a little captured off guard, but they recovered, and in the moment they probably mm-hmm would have. But is there an objective way to say, okay, this person is not a good candidate? I've asked them 3 direct questions, 3 challenging questions, and 3 times they they dropped the ball. Is there an objective thing? And do you really leave it at that? Like, this is first line of criteria. If you can't cut this, I can't expect you to be a valuable person here.
I leave it at that.
Okay.
Yes, I sure do. Mm-hmm. Now, if just as you said, if I ask them one question and they've kind of stumbled a little bit, but now I've moved on to a whole different topic. And by the way, I sort of mix all my questions together. So the first question may be about knowledge. The second question may be about attitude. The third question I may be trying to find out, maybe something like, tell me about your last boss. I'm looking for them to tell me, is it going to be negative? Is it going to be positive? What are they going to say? And I may come up with another question from how they answered. So I really do mix all of my questions up so they don't really know, oh, this whole segment is about my knowledge.
Right.
They don't know that. And I also think it's very important in an interview, and it's interesting how many business owners just don't want to ask the question. And we have to go there because we have to be able to talk about money, right?
Right.
So I ask everyone, what is the highest salary you've made over this last year?
Okay.
And it's interesting because it makes people very uncomfortable, but it's an important question because number one, we want them to be able to talk to us about that. It's part of being in a healthy, thriving environment. And number two, we need to know.
Right. Right.
We can't make a decision on if we can hire this person or not if we don't know that answer.
Right. I'm curious in that. Have you ever had somebody or a client of yours had somebody that just went, oh, I'm not comfortable saying that, like a crazy, you know what I mean? And do you come back? Like, do you let it go? Do you come back? Or do you say, well, like, I mean, I almost feel like I'd be like, well, if, like you just said, well, if you're not comfortable with that, I don't know what we're doing here. But I get a little Nazi-ish on people. So what would a kind and more patient person say to that?
What I have done in the past is I've let it go. I have absolutely let it go, and I've moved on to something else. And I will say, though, the majority of the time, probably 95% of the time, the decision has been made not to hire that person.
Right.
Because when they're answering the question that way, about their own worth, you're going to find that a lot of other answers will show up in regard to their own worth as well, if that makes any sense.
It does. And I think the other big message in this part of the discussion here is that as a whole, as the interviewer, the business owner who is hiring, as a whole, it does relate back to intuition in the sense that the answers are the answers. The ebb and the flow of the question and the answers are what they are. But like you just said, it's like, okay, you might let that answer go because they didn't address it, but that it's usually not the only one that they didn't address or not the only one they evaded, right? And so you have to sort of step back as a whole and say, was this an open, productive interview, or on the whole, was it really a bunch of nonsense?
Right.
Right?
And understand that the way they're interacting with you on this interview is the way they'll be interacting with our clients.
Right. Right. That's a very good point. Exactly right. If you're getting a nudgy feeling, you know what I mean? So now that's one whole scenario, Kathy, that we get this, red flag feeling that something's not quite right, that the answers, as whether they're simple or difficult, we're getting a nudgy feeling in the answering of them. What happens the other way because I feel like, especially when I was a younger business owner, I could more easily get wrapped up in when I do make an instant connection or a rapport with the person across this other side of the desk from me. And now I know, as a grown-up business person, lock it down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Relax. That's great that this person seems great, but they still have to be great for what you're hiring them for. But talk to newer business owners about that dynamic of not forgetting about trying to get to some pointed questions and answers because you do hit it off with them.
Right. Well, I believe, for my attention to detail, it comes in really strong when it comes to interview questions. And I believe in having the interview questions written out right in front of me for each and every position.
Okay.
I am a huge advocate for that. Now, I will say that I have questions that I ask everyone, no matter what. And that is focused on my values, their overall attitude. What is it that I'm looking for? What is it that matters to me? But for each individual position, I do go out and create specific interview questions. And I follow that list. One thing I see people do too, business owners do, is initially to kind of cut the ice. They'll tell them a lot about their business or that position that they're interviewing for. I don't advise that at all.
Yes, I find that people talk too much, right? They tell, yes. Okay, so tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's one of those things, certainly when someone, you're interviewing them, even if it's via Zoom, if it's however we're interviewing them, Skype, whatever it may be, or in person, it's important to start the conversation off so that, yes, we have made some type of a connection, but after we've made that connection, which needs to be relatively quickly, we move into the series of questions that we have. And we explain to them at the very beginning, the way this process is going to work is I'll ask you a series of questions first. And when these questions are over, I'll be more than happy to explain the position to you or answer any questions you have. And then that way it kind of takes that whole awkwardness of, oh my gosh, how much do I tell them about the job or the business right off cuff, because you don't have to do that. You've just given them the outline of what this will look like.
Okay, I like that. And then also, too, in practical terms, if you are getting through the question period and you don't really think the person's a fit, now you don't have to waste your 25 minutes of telling them all about the position.
Correct.
Let's be real.
Yeah, that's the truth, right? Or now you've told them about the position and you're kind of going back and forth about their answers because now you've told them about the position. So you're kind of saying, oh, they're probably not right, but they did answer that one right. Well, they answered that one right because you gave them the information.
Right.
It goes both ways.
Yes, right, exactly. So tell me about these questions. So how important is it for how important are there, questions that are just so perfectly designed and worded that are more likely to elicit a truer answer or reveal? Yeah. Okay, so is there the book of questions? Like, where do we get these questions?
Yeah, right. Well, I love the questions that are like, tell me about a time. Because you are asking them to go back to a time when a client or customer was distraught with them, or when they were having a challenge with their boss, or when they were having a challenge with another team member. You're asking them to go back in time and recall. And the beautiful thing about all these open-ended questions, right, is that our brain is programmed to answer them. So when you're asking a powerful question, like, tell me about a time when you were having challenges with a team member that you work with, they're automatically going to go back to that. They'll automatically say, oh, yeah, there was this girl, Sarah, or, this guy, Joe, that I worked with, and this is what happened.
It automatically puts them off their defense, in other words.
Automatically.
Okay.
Or when you ask them questions like, how do you feel about, because now we're going to that place within themselves of their feelings. They'll do the exact same thing. It automatically takes them off course, and they have a tendency to answer those questions, much more off the cuff and much more honestly.
And so when we think about these couple of questions, tell me about a time that you had a challenge with a boss or with a team member or a client, I imagine. And then tell me, how do you feel about, would it be things like, how do you feel about when team members arrive to work late, or how do you feel about when what? Like, is it these sorts of things? Like, you think about the things in your business that are the Achilles heel and also the super thing about your business, and don't express that that's what it is. But like for us, my husband can't stand it when people are late. Like, and I literally forget, tell me how you feel about when you're late. I tell them, if you're not an on-time person, you don't want this job. Like, I just don't do it. Don't even come. Don't put yourself through it. Don't put me through it, and don't put him through it.
Right. Well, and by the way, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, especially at the end of the conversation. But what would be interesting is to ask them the question during the interview, how do you feel when other team members come in late?
Right.
Or how do you feel about, so let's say their start time is at 8:00. How do you feel when you're running late? Right. But then at the end of the conversation or the end of the interview is when you have the conversation and you say, don't even think about it if you're going to be late.
Right. So because I think that would be sort of revealing, because especially if you ask somebody, how do you feel when other team members are late? Because I can almost see one person could think, well, am I supposed to say I'm not judgmental and everybody has their life and maybe their kid was sick and you know what I mean? Or am I supposed to say, well, there's no room for that, right? So it leaves them no choice but to actually express their values about being late, right?
Right. And wouldn't it be
genius.
interesting? Yeah, right. And wouldn't it be interesting? You know, what's so funny about this, LuAnn, is they answer that question one way. And then at the end of the interview, you know, which maybe they don't have a problem. Maybe they're supposed to be there at 8 and they think 8:05 is fine.
Right.
Well, no, it's not really fine.
Right.
Especially in your environment, right?
Right.
So now it's interesting if they're saying, oh, I really don't have a problem if a team member's late. I'll be more than happy to pick up that slack for them. Chances are, in truth, they're the ones that are late.
Right.
So
That's the thing.
Right. So now it will be really interesting to see how they react when you say, you can't work here if you're going to be late. Don't waste anyone's time.
Right.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, no, I feel like, you know what, in my life, I have learned that you teach people how to treat you. Yes. And I feel like this occurs in everything, personal relationships of the very closest nature and also personal relationships of a acquaintance level nature and also our business relationships. And so my thing is, I don't require you to observe me, get to know me for 5,000 years to figure out what's going to make me happy. I'm going to tell you right now what's going to make me happy. Do this and I'll be happy. Do that, I'm not going to be happy.
Right.
So,
and I love that.
Yeah.
Because doing things like that, you're also letting them know during the interview that you're looking for accountability. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that a lot of business owners, that'll be one of the first things they say is, oh man, I get so tired of putting out fires and, you know, my team's just not accountable. Well, part of that could be leadership. I just want to say that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
yes, definitely.
Maybe they're not having these conversations like you are having with your team, right? So that they get it. And then part of it is also the team members. So it's really looking at the two of them and seeing what needs to be tweaked and what needs to be fixed. Because sometimes a business owner will say, oh, my team's not being accountable. But then truly the team member doesn't really know how to be accountable because they don't feel as if they really have the free rein, right? Maybe they don't have the free rein to say to the client, oh, I'm sorry the paint was spilled. These are one of the 3 things that we can do for you. How would you like for us to solve this problem? Right. Well, if they don't know those things, there's not, you know,
exactly.
It goes both ways.
No, and I have to say, for me, I usually find that if somebody on the team is not performing, if I think about it long and clearly enough, it usually comes down to me or my husband somehow. You know what I mean?
Interesting?
Yeah, I just like, all right, if you're really going to be honest with yourself, you know what I mean? And the thing is, but then once I've had that conversation and I have identified that the behavior is happening because I have not set up boundaries or I have not established where the bars are, you know, I've not established whatever it is, then it becomes the second conversation is, okay, so we've set it up this way. Are we changing it or are we getting over it? You know what I mean?
And it's a choice, right?
It is. And
businesses never make a choice. Therefore, they've made a choice not realizing it. But
yes.
It's a choice.
No, it is. And I think it's a healthy exercise to actually stand and face yourself in the mirror and recognize, because there are many times when things are happening in the course of your business life and your interactions with your employees. You have done everything the way it should be done. You have expressed what their criteria for their level of expertise is. You have expressed what their goals are. You have, and then they still don't do it. And then it's like, okay, sweetie, sit down. We have to have a talk. But I also think a lot of times that, at least I've learned in hindsight through many years of doing this, is that very often the first thing that I will find when somebody is not performing to their best level, it's because I have done something that has stopped that. I have either not given them enough information to do that, or I have not set up the accountability so that they feel, because the other thing with accountability is if you just give people responsibility, but you don't measure that the responsibility has been met, then what's the point of meeting it? Why do they want to do it? Everybody needs to feel like, I'm doing this for a reason. You want me to do it, and now notice that I did it, right?
Yeah, notice that I did it and give me an opportunity to grow in doing it and doing more.
Right.
That's what they want. That's what they're showing up to work, to be with us for.
Right.
So,
Right. Yeah. So it's a lot of dynamics. It's, you know what? And it's funny. I don't know how you would feel about this. And for all of my male listeners, you know, they're probably going to be like, really, LuAnn, stop. But I feel like women are particularly wired to be excellent business owners. And of course I am speaking because I am in my mid 50s. So I am like sort of an old dame here. And I do come from one foot into a life that was very, you know, male dominated. Okay. And of course I'm straddling it. I'm not a woman who is sitting here in the prime of her life and it's 1960. Okay. But, you know, my mother was in her 20s and 30s in the 60s. And so it's for the people who are not anywhere near this age, think Mad Men, you know, think watching Mad Men. You know, I'm sure you were like throwing tomatoes at the TV half the time thinking, just go do what you want to do. Like, why are you letting them hold you back? But there is a reality to that whole thing. It was real, right? So, but the thing is, so I'm sort of one foot into both worlds and certainly have always felt like I could do whatever I want, but I've watched and noticed how it isn't always that way. And so what I'm saying to that is, I think being a woman, sort of you're accustomed to figuring out a way to get things done where everybody is happy when it's all done, as opposed to this is my way or the highway. Now, I talk this as the my way, the highway a lot. Believe me, everybody who knows me knows I do, because there is a point where it is my way or the highway. But there is so much road on that road before I look at you and go, it's over, sweetie. You know what I mean? And so, I just feel like as women, we're sort of wired to sit and look and say, how can I effectively get what I need from my business, for my business, from my employees, for my employees, and have it be a win-win for everybody and for my clients as well. And sometimes I think men just are like, this is how we're going to do it. Get it, you know, like, you know what I mean? And of course, I just alienated half my listeners.
Well, it is interesting, right? Because I think being a woman, and a lot of us too are mothers.
I didn't want to say that, but I also think it comes from running kids too, from managing kids.
Right? Because you have to have common ground with your child.
Exactly.
You can't just, you know, have it be one way. You have to have that communication.
And all the personalities of all your kids.
And all the different personalities, yes.
Right? Absolutely. What works for one kid doesn't work for another.
Definitely not. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But yes, I agree with that totally. And, you know, I think that we as women are in such a beautiful space in regard to owning a business, leading a team, and really allowing who we are authentically to shine through and to just be out in the world doing that. Mm-hmm. What a beautiful gift we have today.
Yes. And the truth is, if you are a man listening to this podcast, I definitely don't be offended. But look, I've got a few men in my life, and I know you think differently, and I don't care what you say. You do. You just do. It's like it's a fact. But it doesn't mean that you can't cultivate it. It doesn't mean that you can't cultivate a mindset that is more like, let me rope everybody into the vision. To me, I feel like I'm always striving for painting the vision of where we're going, what we're doing, trying to get everybody on board with it, and seeing how when we all are running in unison towards this, that we all succeed at a higher level, that we all get to a place together that's better than if we're all just, you know, figuring out and covering our own butts and trying to get it all done in our own little box.
Yeah.
Right.
And you know, I have one of my clients, he is a male, he's a male CEO, he owns his own business. And he came up with his own value statement and where he wants to be in the next 3 years. He actually sends that out to applicants. And, well, he doesn't do it, but someone on his team does it. They send it out to applicants and say, hey, read this. If you think you're still interested, get back with us and let us know you'd like to be interviewed.
Interesting.
So isn't that awesome, though?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that
and
is
it's all about the vision and the values. It's really pretty cool. So,
well, and even something like that, something that's very personal, that expresses your values and your vision. You know, there's people out there that say, yeah, I'm on board with it. But you can tell the difference in the real live interview if they're really just talking it and not really feeling it, and it matters to them, right?
Yes, you can tell. You can definitely tell the difference.
Mm-hmm. So let's just, round up here with maybe a few more suggestions for those open-ended questions that people who might be thinking about hiring for the first time. So we had, tell me about a time, and it could be you had a challenge with a boss or a teammate or coworker. Are there other sorts of tell me about a time? Is it tell me about a time when you had to talk with a disgruntled client? Give us a couple of more suggestions. The first one was that tell me about a time. Second was how do you feel about? What would you say, Kath, to give us some more action here?
Sure. Tell me about a time when you were really feeling completely overwhelmed and you didn't know what to do first. Okay. So that's one. So tell me about a time when you were in a space where you didn't feel a decision that was made was right.
Oh, that's a good one.
How did you handle that? Right. Tell me about a time when in your work environment you had to do something that inside of yourself you didn't feel was right. What did you do?
Okay. Very good question.
Another great question is, how do you handle stressful situations?
Oh. Now let me cut you off there.
Sure.
What kinds of things is somebody really, nobody's going to sit there, well, you can pick me up of a puddle on my office floor. Like, what are people going to tell you, right? What are they going to say?
Right. But chances are what they would say is first they would start off by saying, oh, I handle it very well. And then from there, I would say, okay, well, tell me about it. Real casual. I mean, I wouldn't even say, tell me about a time. I would say, okay, well, tell me about that. And kind of leave it in their court to give, for them to give you a scenario or a situation where they really handled that stress well.
So you're not even cueing them on trying to help them think of a situation. You're leaving it completely open-ended. They could pick anything. They could pick anything from a fight with their husband. They could pick something from an argument with a boss. They could pick something where they, picked up everything and all the stuff fell off the shelves in their closet. I mean, You're just letting it, tell me about a stressful situation.
Because we learn a lot from that, right?
Yes.
They could say, 2 weeks ago, I had to rush my puppy to the vet. Right? So you learn a lot about that when you ask them just a question like that, and it does not have to be focused on work.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I love it. And I have just one last question I would love for you to address. One of the things that's happened to me many times in a job interview with people is and why I bring it up is because these open-ended questions I can suspect are going to elicit more of this out of certain personality types. But I'm thinking of a particular person that I interviewed about 1.5 years ago, and I asked her something as simple as, why are you looking for work now? What is your current work situation? And I'm going to tell you 15 minutes of the situation where she's at and the, yada, yada, yada. And I was like, I 2 or 3 times in a nice way, or like, oh, okay. So, but I'm like, okay, it's enough.
Done.
You know what I mean? Like, what are you doing? Like, and I'm thinking to myself, there was one question and I was done, because I thought, I can't come in here to my business every day and ask you one question and still stand here for 20 minutes. It's like, I was already like, you are not my culture.
Yeah, you're not my culture. Well, and that one of the things I really believe in too, and I know we're winding up now, but I really believe in personality profiles. I love to do the DISC profile. I love to do Colby, because you put the two of them together and you get a really good picture of a person's sort of natural attitude and personality. And it's wonderful to create interview questions around those too. Like if you need someone who's really detail oriented, but you're a little concerned that this person may not be as strong as you want them to be, by doing the Colby and by doing the DISC, really getting good with those type of scenarios and questions is really important too. So chances are this woman that you were interviewing was probably a super high I, for instance, super high people person, which is great for some positions, but certainly not great for others.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, it just, I just imagine me in the middle of my day and walking in and saying and asking a question and needing the information. And 15 minutes later, like I want to pull my eyeballs out. It's like, stop talking.
Or worse, walking around to other team members and wasting their time too.
Exactly.
Yes,
but you're right. I mean, the point is, if I were hiring for a sales position, a little bit of, decorum is needed, but you want a more outgoing, talkative person. But I was hiring for an admin at that particular time.
Yes.
And so you're right. I don't want to come into my showroom and find everybody standing around having a yak session.
That's correct. And chances are with that person, that's exactly what would have happened.
Yes. I love admins at WindowWorks that are, and they're obviously completely different personalities from me, but that are quiet by nature, come in, head down, work, pick, and of course, then I expect them, when we are all going to put our hair down and to have 15 minutes of hilarity, to turn around and to take part. And I've had people over the years that really is not their thing. And you see them struggle when we are 8 or 10 of us all there and we're carrying on. You know what I mean? But
yes.
it's kind of a funny thing, but it is something I believe that comes with you. Like we started this, you have to know yourself. You have to know what you need that's going to enhance and help and move forward your business the best, and what's going to work with your personality and where your deficiencies in your personality are. And then secondly, know your business, right? So you know yourself first, and then you know your business second, you said to us, and understand what your your goals and your 3-year goals are. With this, you have a roadmap. And then, actually, I would say that we probably, with this interview process, you're saying now that we look at this DISC and this Colby. Are these free resources, Kathy, these personality assessments, or do you pay for them?
You actually do pay for them.
Okay.
You do pay for them, but I will say that they are well worth it.
If it's an important hire, right?
Yeah, they're so important. One of my clients, who is in the creative side of life too, in a clothing manufacturer line, she reached out to me saying, "Okay, Kathy, we're hiring 3 more people, so let's really get these discs and Colbys set up the way we need them to be, because they are just." The people we're hiring are just knocking it out of the game.
Oh,
so
because you're doing good homework on the front end, so she's really pleased with what you're attracting and cultivating and ultimately hiring.
Absolutely.
Okay, and so would you say to that end that somebody whose resources maybe are not as deep, that they might do the interview process, and if they end up interviewing, say, 3 people, and it comes down to one that they're leaning towards, then maybe make the investment in the personality assessment for a kind of confirmation? Or is that sound reasonable?
I do that with everybody.
Yes.
I don't believe in just giving these tests, before you interview, or just giving, okay, so we're going to interview 5 people and giving it to all of them. I don't believe in that. I don't really think that's fair. But I do love at the end, okay, this is the person. I think I know what I've got. I know what's important to me in this role. So let's do this test.
Okay. So you do sort of wait till you've got it narrowed down to somebody that you believe is a right fit.
I sure do.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. And then it's sort of like the slam dunk, like, okay, my instincts and all my interview skills prove me in the right direction, or hello, I missed something.
And the awesome thing is, if you miss something, but yet, you're still feeling pretty strong or passionate about this person, have someone else on your team, or, have someone that you're working with go around the backside and say, oh, well, we'd like to do another interview with you.
Okay.
And create questions around what you're thinking their weaknesses are.
Okay. And then that's a good idea. Well, I always do the second interview too. And I always say to them, well, you have to come in for the second time to meet my husband, but it's really for me to put eyeballs on them again and test my instincts on the first meeting. So, so that's good. But now, and in these questions, so what you do with the questions, I'm feeling like, for a little bit of advice for our designers friends out there, is that we have these basic open-ended questions, but then we sit and give very careful thought to what I think you said somewhere in the conversation, for each position, you're going to possibly tweak the question. So it's tell me about a time. But if somebody was hiring a design assistant, they might have 5, 6 different questions that would be different for the admin or for the bookkeeper. So that's our homework. We have to give some serious thought to the skill set that we need. So if, whatever it is, right? Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Because if you're hiring, let's say we're talking about a bookkeeper. Well, just as you said, a lot of people on your team, they stay at their desk all the time. They're detail oriented. Their, nose is always sort of to the grindstone. That's what you really want with a bookkeeper.
Right.
I mean, that's the personality. But if you're hiring someone for sales, well, number one, you want them to know that they're a relationship builder, but you also want to ensure that they're assertive enough to ask for the sale.
Right. Definitely.
So, yeah, because you can build relationships all day long, but never gain a sale if you're not asking for it, right?
Exactly.
So,
exactly. Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, the thing is, I guess what I'm getting at is that we can use these open-ended questions as a place for us to individually explore the types. I think what I'm saying is, and I'm asking is that it's making me think that I would sit and really give some careful contemplation to the types of scenarios that this hire I expect them to be in, the types of challenges I expect that they will face, the interactions that they will face with the team members, with the executive team, with the clients, and then put my questions into those sorts of areas so that I get the response without saying, what would you do if I walked in and said this? You sort of make it back to a more neutral question, but I've already geared the question to the scenarios I know that are going to face on a regular basis in my company.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Just think about the things within your business that's happened in the past, whether it be customers being upset about something, inventory not coming in as you had planned, team members being late to work and that's not tolerated. Think of all those different types of scenarios. Those are the questions that you would be asking. Those are the questions that you would be putting in front of these people that are applying. Okay.
I love it. And then one last question. I'm curious your answer on it. I had an interesting experience where what's interesting is that there was one of our previous guests that mentioned that sometimes your first interview could be on site to where that person would work, but the second interview might be at a different location because people interact differently. And what's interesting to me is I just at that same exact moment when we were interviewing, I recently had a intern in the business. And what was funny was it was exactly that. For the first 2-3 days that this young person was in our business, I was just like, I couldn't believe that the person was as young as they were because they were just so professional and handled them. So I brought this person in front of clients with me in the office, everything. But then I think on the 3rd or 4th day, I said to her, why don't you come across the street and have lunch with me? Because I forget what was going on. And I said, come across the street. And then all of a sudden, the kid came out. All of a sudden, talking to me about, a party she went to and her parents' divorce. And I was like, whoa, what happened?
Yes, so, it's very true.
Interesting. And of course, she was a child, so I did not hold it against her. But it made me realize that, in a grown-up situation with somebody that I was planning to, hire for a real-life job. But do you really go out of your way to make the time to do that? And do you really... what do you hold that against somebody if they think they're in a casual place and all of a sudden do they forget that they're with the boss? Like, what's your feeling on that? Because I've struggled with thinking about that question.
I believe in it wholeheartedly. I believe, especially with certain and specific positions that you're hiring for, if it's sales, if it's outside sales, if it's any type of position where you're really touching the customer a great deal, or a leadership role, I absolutely believe the power of taking them out to breakfast, to lunch. How are they treating the people that are, bringing us our food? What does all this look like? Are they looking them in the eyes? Are they paying attention to what's going on around them? It's really important, especially for those team members that you have working with you, that do touch other people day in and day out.
That's a good point, because if you are an interior designer that's maybe your first hire is going to be a design assistant that you hope will grow into a bigger role with clients and interaction, you're exactly right. It is. And I have to say, because I'm thinking about Kimberly. Kimberly was just always aces from day one, even when she was young. I mean, I think she was 23 years old or 24 when she first came working for me. And in every scenario, she is, like you said, interacting with service people, interacting with other trades on the project, interacting with clients. She always knows her place. She always knows exactly how to behave. I always thought to myself, that was a well-raised kid.
Yes, there you go. That's awesome.
Yeah, she really, but it's true. And I think you're right. So for someone listening that maybe the first hire is a design assistant that they expect to grow in and be more of a partner out on the field and have a lot of responsibility, and like you said, interact with the clients and the vendors, it is good to know that they're, because I guess what really happened, like I said, this person was truly a kid. And so in 5 years, if that were to be the case, that's sort of, you didn't learn your lesson. But at 18 years old, I'm not worried about it at that point.
No.
It'd be nice if you know it, but it's not a requirement.
Right.
But the thing is that even the interactions with vendors, so I'm a vendor on a job a lot of times. And so it's important, like I've been in a situation sometimes where a junior assistant might talk out of turn a little. And I'm like, whoa, no. See, your boss is my peer. Don't do that. You know what I mean? Right. Don't stand here and complain about your boss to me. That's not good. I don't want to hear it. La, 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 la.
Yeah. And the truth is, with our vendors as well, when we talk about customer advocates, well, our vendors are advocates for us too. Right. I mean, it's who we are out in the world. So I hear you with that one.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you what, a wealth of information, and I really enjoy the conversation. We weren't nearly as linear as I think I sometimes am. Maybe I never am. I don't know. But you really do have a lot of good information to share, and I can hear and understand that your expertise goes wide and deep in this area, and I appreciate your sharing it with us. So, Kathy, before you go, let everyone know how they learn more about you, where they find out about you. And I know that you have 2 or 3 at least free resources for people to access in this area. And then also you have a great blog, because I've read many of the blog post entries that really go into a lot of these same discussions.
Oh, thanks, LuAnn. I appreciate that. Yes, anyone can reach me. I would love for you to go out and check out my website. Message me if you'd like to. I'd love to hear from you. But my website is www.kathyknowles.com.
And it's K's, Kath, yeah. So
yes, KATHYKNOWLES.com. And again, you can also email me, Kathy@kathyknowles.com. But I do have a couple freebies out there. One is on my main website, my homepage, and that is about gaining more loyal customers. And the other one, I'll give you the email for. Okay. And that is www.kathy-knowles.com/find-fill, FILL, /. And that is the process that I use to help businesses hire right the first time.
Nice.
It's really about creating your dream team. Yeah.
Very exciting. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Kathy. I think I kept you longer than I usually keep Power Talk Friday people, but you had a lot of good stuff to share. So I do appreciate your coming with us today.
Thank you. And I so appreciate, it was an amazing interview. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me again today for another episode of A Well-Designed Business. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks in Livingston, New Jersey, your trade resource for custom window treatments and awnings. Learn more about WindowWorks at www.windowworks-nj.com. All of our music is original music by Room 2 Productions. Please contact us if you want to learn more about original music for your business or your events.